Hey, Mike here. I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Dark Poutine early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Think you know the Brooks Ghost? Think again. Introducing the all-new, better-than-ever Ghost 16. Now with nitrogen-infused cushioning for lightweight, supreme softness that feels good every step, every street, every single day. So go ahead, take your daily joyride in the all-new nitrogen-infused Ghost 16. It'll turn your everyday miles into everyday endorphins. Let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Welcome back to Dark Poutine. I am Mike Brown, and with me, per usual, downtown is...
It's Matthew and Steve. Welcome to the Matthew and Steve show.
I can see out your window, and it looks really nice.
It's beautiful, and I have a little bow tied around Steve's neck today.
Why do you have a bow around his neck?
Well, I got some new bedding, and and it comes with a little bow wrapped around it, so it really softens him up, you know?
So what's up with you and Steve today? What are you guys up to?
I was out in suburbia somewhere, you know.
Port Moody is where you were.
No, Anmore.
Yeah, that's close to Port Moody.
Okay, no idea.
Yeah.
And we're doing a little tiny podcasty thing with a friend.
Oh.
And yeah, I'm not going to announce it yet because I don't have no idea if it's going to be any good. So, yes, I came back and Steve's hanging out with me and I'm going to make a steak tonight. And yeah, doesn't it feel like summer for the first time today?
Yeah, it's really summery. I went out to the grocery store and I was just like, woof. But boy, am I ever glad to be in the air conditioning and inside the store.
Oh gosh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Yeah, it's good. It's good. My sister-in-law is coming next weekend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
You're
like
have a little visit.
A sudden business trip, so she's here for 2 days. So
is she staying with you?
Yeah, and she's also my yoga teacher, so we're going to do yoga on the deck.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during the Dark Poutine podcast are solely those of the producer and do not necessarily represent those of Curious Cast, its affiliate, Global News, nor their parent company, Chorus Entertainment.
Dark Poutine is not for the faint of heart or squeamish. Listener discretion is strongly advised. We're not experts on the topics we present, nor are we journalists. We're two ordinary Canadians chatting about crime and the dark side of history. Let's get to it. Put on your toque, grab yourself a double-double and a Nanaimo bar. It's time to scarf down some dark poutine.
You are responsible for obtaining and maintaining at your own cost all equipment needed to listen to Dark Poutine. Dark Poutine can be addictive. Side effects may include, but not be limited to, pausing and questioning the system, elevated heart rate, pondering humanity, odd looks from colleagues as you laugh out loud at work, family members not into true crime worrying about you. Positive side effects may include some perspectives and opinions that you disagree with, as well as some wokeness and empathy. If you don't think Dark Poutine is for you, consult your doctor immediately.
With its rugged coastline and often treacherous waters, Nova Scotia has long been a graveyard for ships.
The history of maritime disasters in this region is a testament to the perils faced by those who dared to navigate its seas from the earliest days of European exploration to the age of steamships. This chronicle of shipwrecks highlights the dangers of sea travel and the relentless power of the Atlantic Ocean. The SS Atlantic was a passenger steamship owned by the White Star Line that sank off the coast of Nova Scotia on April 1, 1873, resulting in one of the greatest maritime disasters before the Titanic. The ship was on its 19th voyage from Liverpool to New York with around 975 people on board when it ran short of coal, prompting the captain to divert to Halifax for refueling. However, due to navigational errors, the ship struck rocks near Prospect, Nova Scotia in the early morning. Despite efforts to launch lifeboats, the rough seas made it nearly impossible, and many passengers were trapped below deck as the ship took on water. The rescue was aided by the brave efforts of local fishermen and others. In total, 562 people perished in the disaster, making it the most significant loss of civilian life in the North Atlantic at that time. This is Dark Poutine episode 322, Marine Disasters in Nova Scotia and the Wreck of the SS Atlantic. As I've mentioned many times, growing up in Nova Scotia, I have a healthy interest in all things nautical, particularly shipwrecks. We've talked about some of the most famous nautical stories from around my home province, early on with the Halifax explosion in episode 4, and the Mary Celeste in episode 215, to name a couple. The history of shipwrecks in Nova Scotia dates back to the early days of European exploration and colonization. The rocky coastline, frequent fog, and powerful storms made navigation extremely hazardous. Throughout the 16th and 17th centuries, the waters off Nova Scotia claimed numerous large and small ships. Many of these vessels were engaged in the lucrative fishing and trading industries vital to the region's economy. The unpredictable weather and treacherous currents often caught sailors off guard, leading to countless shipwrecks and a loss of valuable cargo. The 18th and early 19th centuries saw a significant increase in maritime traffic as trade and exploration flourished. Nova Scotia's ports, such as Halifax and Lunenburg, became bustling hubs of activity. However, with this increase in traffic came an increase in shipwrecks. The powerful storms that regularly swept the Atlantic Ocean continued to wreak havoc on ships, regardless of their size or the experience of their crews. Sable Island has earned the ominous nickname Graveyard of the Atlantic and figures prominently in Nova Scotia's shipwreck history. Sable Island is a narrow crescent-shaped sandbar located approximately 190 miles southeast of the mainland of the province. This remote and treacherous island has been the site of over 350 recorded shipwrecks since the early 16th century. When I was a boy, in my bedroom I had a poster depicting a map of Sable Island, highlighting the position of many of the known shipwrecks around the island since 1800. I used to fantasize about what had happened to each and how they'd come to be there. While I dreamed of pirates and sea serpents, no doubt it was more likely lousy weather and poor navigational decisions that led to each wreck. Sailors often found themselves caught off guard by the island's low profile and hidden shoals, leading to countless vessels running aground. The island's perilous reputation stems from its shifting sands, frequent fog, and powerful storms which create hazardous conditions for navigation. Among the notable shipwrecks was the HMS Delight in 1583, one of the earliest recorded, which set a tragic precedent for many that would follow. The HMS Delight was part of Sir Humphrey Gilbert's expedition to Newfoundland, a significant early English attempt to establish a presence in North America. Commanded by Richard Clark, the Delight ran aground on one of Sable Island's sandbars on August 29, 1583. The ship sank rapidly, taking 85 men and most of the expedition's supplies with her. Clark and 16 men managed to escape in a small lifeboat, spending 7 harrowing days at sea before being rescued off the coast of Newfoundland. In 1737, Sable Island claimed another significant vessel sailing under the name Catherine. The Catherine was a type of sailing ship called a snow, similar to a brig,
but had a small spar rigged behind the main mast to help handle the spanker sail. After the Catherine was shipwrecked on Sable Island in 1737, more than 100 survivors made it safely ashore. They used the mainsail from the wrecked vessel to construct a tent for shelter on the island.
When people talk naval terms or boat terms, when you were describing like all those things, I was like, all I heard was blah, 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 spanker, blah, blah, blah.
Spanker, yes.
Why is it called a spanker? Does it spank you?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. There are some interesting names for naval things. For example, the poop deck.
The poop deck.
Yeah.
Catherine's longboat had also washed ashore, but it was damaged. Over the next 2 days, the survivors were able to repair the longboat. On the third day after the wreck, the ship's master, mate, and others sailed the repaired longboat from Sable Island to the nearby town of Canso. The residents of Canso were then able to mount a successful rescue operation to retrieve the survivors from Sable Island after being alerted by the longboat crew. So despite the initial shipwreck, all 100 Catherine survivors were eventually rescued, thanks to their resourcefulness in using the wreckage for shelter, repairing the longboat, and signaling for help in Canso. The Catherine wreck again demonstrated Sable Island's perilous nature and the shipwrecked crew's resilience. In 1800, the Francis, another Snow, met its unfortunate demise on the treacherous sandbars surrounding Sable Island. As the wreckage washed ashore, grisly rumors began to circulate that the bodies of passengers and crew had been looted of their valuables and that there may have even been murders committed against survivors to steal their possessions. Alarmed by these disturbing accounts, the authorities dispatched an officer to Sable Island to investigate the matter. Upon arrival, the officer indeed found evidence that looters had picked over the wreck site, salvaging valuable personal items from the dead. However, to the relief of many, there was no proof discovered of any survivors being killed during the sordid affair. Yet the Francis wreck proved to be a turning point. The safety concerns it raised, coupled with the persistent tales of grave robbing and possible violence, finally spurred the colonial government of Nova Scotia to action. In 1801, they established the Humane Establishment, a permanent life-saving station on Sable Island itself. Staffed by crews of hardy surfmen, this outpost would go on to save hundreds of shipwrecked sailors and passengers in the decades to come.
I have a feeling that I'd like to be stuck on Sable Island with crews of hardy surfmen, as you put it.
Yeah.
Question for you. Number one, Mike, have you ever been out to the Sable Island?
No.
Okay. Number two, is there surfing there?
No, I do not believe so.
Okay, and
there's ponies on Sable Island, wild ponies, which is interesting.
Oh, so it's not just a sandbar; it's an island.
No, it's a proper island, but the island is a sandbar.
I love sandbars. I used to swim out to them on Lake Huron when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like a tourist place now?
No, it
Why
isn't.
not? It sounds like it'd be a great tourist place.
It probably would be a good tourist place, but it's a national park reserve.
Oh,
right now.
Okay, and then number 4.
Yes.
Don't you think that after so many bloody ships like crash into this thing, that people would be like super duper like, oh my God, you have the map, you know?
we don't want to hit Sable Island.
Sable Island, where everyone dies.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if everybody died. Their ship sank.
It seems like it took a long time to learn.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, that map I had when I was a little kid, I mean, it's not exactly sparsely dotted.
Is that the same map?
That is the same map that I had.
Are you putting on this on the website?
I don't think so, but I might.
Do it, because honestly, like, I'm like, okay, you had a map, and I was picturing like 4 or 5. It's just like hundreds and hundreds of little drawings of ships that have like it's literally almost every single little piece of coast on that island has a shipwreck on it.
Yeah. Anyway, the Francis wreck also left another lasting legacy. It inspired a local ghost story that became part of maritime folklore. The tale spoke of a phantom woman in a tattered dress forever haunting the beaches of Sable Island, desperately searching for her severed finger cut off by looters to steal her wedding ring. Whether rooted in truth or a fanciful myth, the story served as a chilling reminder of the need to treat those lost at sea with dignity and respect. The island's shipwreck history is marked by both tragedy and resilience, and many of the shipwrecks occurred during the height of transatlantic trade and travel, with vessels carrying immigrants, cargo, and crew meeting their demise on the island's shores. The abundance of shipwrecks on Sable Island highlights mariners' extreme challenges navigating these dangerous waters. One of the earliest marine disasters close to the mainland of Nova Scotia was the loss of the British naval frigate HMS Tribune in November 1797, which has become an almost forgotten chapter of Halifax's maritime history despite the massive loss of life. Originally a French frigate called La Charente Inférieure, launched in 1793, the British captured the ship in 1796 and refitted it to become the 44-gun HMS Tribune. On November 23, 1797, under the command of Captain Scory Barker, the Tribune entered Halifax Harbor without a local pilot against the captain's wishes. The ship ran aground on shoals near the harbor entrance. Initial efforts to signal for help and lighten the ship proved unsuccessful as the Tribune took on water and lost its rudder. As night fell and a gale rose, the stricken vessel drifted across the harbor mouth and finally ran ashore near Herring Cove, just a short distance from land. With the ship sinking rapidly, a catastrophic tragedy unfolded. Somewhere between 235 and 275 of the approximately 250 to 289 crew and passengers perished that night from exposure or drowning in the icy waters, mere lengths from the safety of the shore. Only 12 to 14 people, including a handful of officers in the jolly boat, made it to land alive. It was later revealed that due to career concerns, the captain refused to give the order to abandon the ship. It was a needless sacrifice. Local residents on shore could see and hear the desperate souls trapped aboard the floundering wreck but could not help. In a remarkable act of heroism, the following day, a 13-year-old local boy rowed a small skiff through heavy seas out to the wreck and rescued 8 more survivors clinging to the foretop of the submerged Tribune. The young rescuer, known simply as Joe Cracker, was offered a naval position by Prince Edward Augustus for his bravery, but proved unsuitable for service life. Despite representing one of the most significant maritime disasters in Canadian history, with a staggering loss of life so tantalizingly close to shore, the tragic fate of the HMS Tribune and its crew has become a mere footnote lost to history. The real identity of the young rescuer, Joe Cracker, has been forgotten. While poet Joseph Howe wished for the heroic deed to be remembered forever, the Tribune disaster has slipped into obscurity over the centuries that followed. A stark reminder of how quickly events can be erased from public memory, no matter their scale or significance at the time. The advent of steamships in the mid-19th century brought about significant changes in maritime travel. Steam power allowed ships to travel faster and more reliably, but it did not eliminate the dangers of the sea. The transition from sail to steam introduced new risks, such as mechanical failures and boiler explosions. Despite these advancements, the waters off Nova Scotia remained perilous. The combination of dense fog, unpredictable weather, and rugged coastlines continued to pose significant challenges to sailors. The wreck of the steamship SS Hungarian in 1860 is a notable example. The ship was en route from Liverpool to Portland, Maine, when it encountered a storm near Cape Sable Island, an island closer to the mainland off southern Nova Scotia, not to be confused with Sable Island. The Hungarian struck a reef and quickly sank, resulting in the loss of 205 souls, 130 passengers, and 75 crew. The SS Atlantic disaster in 1873 near Prospect, Nova Scotia, remains one of the most tragic shipwrecks in the region's history, with a significant loss of life and a profound impact on maritime safety regulations. The Atlantic, built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast, Ireland in 1870, was the second of 4 Oceanic-class liners, which included the Republic, Oceanic, and Baltic. These ships were constructed for the White Star Line.
The Atlantic featured a 4-cylinder compound condensing steam engine producing 600 horsepower, driving a single propeller at 14.5 knots. It also had auxiliary propulsion as a 4-masted bark. The ship measured 420 feet in length and 41 feet in the beam, with a depth of 32 feet and a registered tonnage of 3,707 tons. The Atlantic had 3 decks, 5 bulkheads, and luxurious accommodations, including cabin class with ensuite staterooms and provisions for 1,000 steerage passengers who were segregated by gender and had no deck access.
I bet the Atlantic was at the height of high tech for its time, by the sounds of it.
It definitely was.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, a knot is about 1.15 mile per hour. I don't know why there's all these different measurements of speed and depth when it comes to, again, things nautical. Like, instead of how many feet deep, it's how many fathoms. I guess they just like really interesting sounding words.
I like the word. Yeah, nerdy words. I like the word fathom.
Yeah, it has a romantic quality to it and sort of a darkness. I don't know what it is.
Well, there's one of my favorite songs by Susie and the Banshees. She uses fathom. 5 fathoms deep. Yeah, very, very sort of dark and moody word, fathom.
The Atlantic's design included accommodations for a diverse mix of passengers reflecting the social hierarchies of the era. First-class passengers enjoyed luxurious facilities, including elegant dining rooms, lounges, and smoking rooms designed to provide comfort and sophistication. In contrast, second- and third-class passengers were housed in more basic dormitory-style accommodations. Despite these disparities, the Atlantic's design aimed to ensure that all passengers, regardless of class, had a safe and relatively comfortable journey across the ocean. Despite having 10 lifeboats ranging from 19 to 32 feet in length, like other ships at the time, the Atlantic was inadequately equipped with lifeboats. Maritime law required ships to provide lifeboat capacity based on the volume of carrying space, not the number of passengers. The law mandated a ship carry cubic feet of lifeboat space, with 100 cubic feet equating 1 ton. This requirement did not ensure enough lifeboats for every passenger. The Atlantic's lifeboats had a capacity of 5,778 cubic feet, exceeding the legal requirement of 3,600 cubic feet, but they could only save about half the passengers in good weather and even fewer in rough conditions.
And there you go, because of the way their fanciful way of measuring everything.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, instead of just counting people, let's do it by cubic feet.
Yeah.
What was the thinking? Why, like if
they're shipping stuff, right? Like, I mean,
but if you stop and think about it, right? Like just any sort of brain cell whatsoever, you kind of go, we should probably have enough space in lifeboat for every single person on board.
You would think. You would think that would be what they would do.
Perhaps life was cheap.
I guess so.
Yeah.
During her service, the SS Atlantic was a workhorse for the White Star Line, making regular voyages between Liverpool, England, and New York City, USA. These voyages were part of the White Star Line's strategic efforts to compete in the highly lucrative transatlantic travel market. The Atlantic became known for her reliability and sturdiness, essential qualities given the unpredictable and often harsh conditions of the North Atlantic Ocean. Throughout her career, the SS Atlantic was more than just a vessel. She symbolized technological advancements and growing importance of transatlantic travel in the late 19th century. Her ability to carry a mix of passengers, mail and cargo, made her a versatile and valuable asset to the White Star Line. The Atlantic's service exemplified the era's spirit of exploration, migration, and innovation, contributing to the broader narrative of human movement and technological progress during a transformative historical period. She left the port of Liverpool, UK for the last time at 2 p.m. on March 20th, 1873, with 615 passengers aboard and bound for New York City. The ship navigated through the Irish Sea and arrived in Queenstown, now Cove, the next morning. They picked up 175 more passengers there, including several women with children. Again, according to Robert Chalk's well-researched book, Atlantic's Last Stop, the Atlantic left Queenstown at 10:30 a.m. with 790 passengers, including 32 saloon class and the rest steerage class, mostly emigrants. The passengers comprised 673 adults, 90 children, and 27 infants. Along with 152 officers and crew, the total aboard was 942. Additionally, up to 14 stowaways and 2 babies born during the voyage brought the total of souls to 956. Most people aboard were immigrants from England, Ireland, Germany, and Scandinavia. We will continue the harrowing tale of the SS Atlantic after this short break.
On a night cold enough to freeze your bones, a prospector searching for a legendary cursed gold mine vanishes without a trace. I'm Crew Williams, the host of Dead Man's Curse. This season, we retrace the steps of fortune seekers looking for a mother lode worth billions who never came back. So come join our quest. Search for and follow Dead Man's Curse Volcanic Gold on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by La Quinta by Wyndham. Your work can take you all over the place, like Texas. You've never been, but it's going to be great because you're staying at La Quinta by Wyndham. Their free Bright Side breakfast will give you energy for the day ahead. And after, you can unwind using their free high-speed Wi-Fi. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine. Book your stay today at lq.com.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. In breaking news, leading scientists worldwide are conducting experiments to determine if Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. However, it appears the study was inconclusive, as the scientists couldn't help but eat all the Reese's. Because when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
And we are back. Matthew, comments and thoughts so far?
So you grew up in the Maritimes.
I did. Yeah.
I grew up in Southwest Ontario, so with all the Great Lakes, but it's a very different feeling, right?
Yes, yeah.
Have you ever been on a cruise?
Not a proper cruise, no. I've taken ferries, but never a proper cruise.
Yeah, I've taken ferries. Obviously, I take one a day with Steve, but it's like a little aqua bus, right?
Right.
And this is, I lived in the UK, which of course is a maritime country, right? Or kingdom. But now I live here, and I look out my window and I see the ocean.
Right.
And I think Steve got me on the ferry and stuff. I'm thinking about maybe. I don't know if being stuck on a boat, if I would think it really sucks.
Yeah.
Or if it would be nice. So what I'm thinking about doing is booking a cruise from here up to Alaska and back, which is a short jaunt, right? Just to test the waters.
Pun intended.
Actually, it wasn't, but there you go.
Yeah. Actually, what a lot of people do for their first cruise is they will go either to Alaska,
right,
on the boat, or back instead of taking both ways, because you can essentially get a one-way ticket on a cruise ship and go to, say, Anchorage, and then fly back.
Okay.
So it's even easier, and it's even a better way to discover whether or not you like it, because if you hate it on the way up, you're gonna hate it on the way back.
That's true. And something inside me wants to just take a posh cruise like the Queen Mary 2 or something.
Sure, yeah. A lot of people tell me that taking a cruise ship is like essentially Vegas on the ocean.
Yeah, see, gross. And and I know guys that have gone on gay cruises, and the worst thing I could think of is being stuck on a boat with 1,000 homosexuals.
I don't know. Maybe you know things that I don't. I wouldn't be too bad with that.
Oh, it'd be terrible.
But I can think some people that would be their worst nightmare. And I would actually like to see their faces.
Dude, I'm gay and it's my worst nightmare.
Oh, no. During its voyage, the Atlantic encountered heavy seas and gale-force headwinds, significantly slowing its progress. By the 11th day, Captain James Williams feared they would run out of coal before reaching New York. Unbeknownst to him, the ship's engineer, John Foxley, had been underreporting coal reserves to encourage economical use. Foxley estimated 129 tons of coal remained, though at least 140 tons were needed for the 2-day journey to New York. Believing they were short on fuel and unable to hoist sails due to the headwind, the captain decided to divert to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and refuel. This was a common practice for ships low on coal, though it was the first time for a White Star ship, and none of the mates had solid knowledge of Halifax Harbor.
So, Foxley, being this parsimonious, cheap guy, set the course. I bet you, like, if he lived in these days, he'd have like a beige Ford Escort and he'd live in Mississauga.
A beige Ford Escort. I'm the assistant supervising manager of the thing.
My mom had a beige Ford Escort because it's all we could afford, so I'm not taking the piss, but you get my point. It's like this Foxley guy, it's like he was the engineer and he's acting like a bean counter. It's kind of like you kind of see what kind of guy he is, right?
Yeah.
Like you know, the bad side part like sort of like stuck to his head.
Just greased down. Yeah. Yeah, not good. Comb over.
Yeah, Foxley had a comb over for sure.
Yeah. In the wee hours of April 1st, 1873, Captain William's sleep was interrupted by journalist Cyrus Fisher, who questioned him about the ship's coal situation. After Fisher left around midnight, Williams lay down, planning to wake at 3 a.m. At 2 a.m., he briefly checked the ship before returning to sleep. Somewhat familiar with Halifax, Quartermaster Robert Thomas took the wheel at 2 a.m. and warned Second Officer Metcalf that they were nearing the coast. Metcalf dismissed the warning, unaware the ship was off course. The steward brought cocoa for the captain at 3 a.m., but Metcalf sent him away, deciding to wake the captain as planned. Metcalf, fixated on seeing the Sambro light, did not call the captain and continued sailing into the darkness despite not seeing the light. He didn't slow down or check the water's depth, missing critical steps that could have prevented the disaster. The ship was 25 kilometers off course. At 3:12 a.m., Metcalf finally decided to call Captain Williams, but before he could, lookout Joseph Carroll shouted, "Breakers ahead!" White water from the waves striking cliffs loomed terrifyingly close. Metcalf sprang into action, shouting orders, spinning the wheel, and reversing the engines, but it was too late. The ship struck the rocks at Lower Prospect around 3:15 a.m., leading to hours of terror for everyone aboard. Quartermaster Reynolds logged a speed of 12 knots just before disaster struck, almost full speed. Officers and crew rushed to deploy the lifeboats, but they were washed away as the ship sank and seas swept over the deck. 20 people were killed when the foremast came loose, and many drowned on the half deck, blocked by passengers. Parts of the rigging remained above water, and those who could clung to it for dear life. Saloon passenger Henry Herzl described being awakened by 3 sharp shocks. The ship initially struck fast, but the engine stopped and then restarted. However, the engine sputtered to a complete halt after a second strike. Chief Engineer Foxley shut down the engines and released boiler pressure to prevent an explosion, adding to the chaos with hissing steam. Distress rockets were fired, but there was no way to know if anyone saw them. The ship struck twice offshore, tearing its bottom on granite rocks before grounding the bow. Water flooded the stern, where the single women were berthed below deck, causing all of them to perish. Amid darkness and pandemonium, passengers from amidships tried to reach the deck. Many did not make it. Those who did were directed to the high and dry bow, but many were swept away as the deck sank and waves washed over it. Some men could have survived, but chose to stay with their families, costing them their lives.
So, single women were kept below deck.
Right.
So we should make a musical about this.
Single women kept below deck? Yeah, that would be one of the songs in the musical.
Oh, the single ladies. Oh, the single ladies.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. But yeah, you think about it, it's just like, There was no consideration for safety. It was like, just everybody pile on this boat and let's hope we get to New York.
Pile on the boat, but oddly, like, ooh, single women have to be in their own deck and kept away from everybody else.
Well, it was probably because they had only paid a certain amount. They were, emigrating, so...
Where did the single men, where were they?
They were in another compartment, but they weren't at the stern of the ship, which is the place that sank first. Those who didn't drown most likely died of hypothermia. The icy waters of the Atlantic Ocean present a formidable and potentially fatal threat to those unfortunate enough to find themselves immersed. Hypothermia, the dangerous drop in core body temperature, can set in alarmingly quickly when exposed to these frigid conditions. In waters around 41 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 5 degrees Celsius, it generally takes a mere 20 to 30 minutes before the debilitating effects of hypothermia begin to take hold. However, the initial cold shock response poses even more immediate peril. The sudden gasping, hyperventilation, and increased heart rate triggered by plunging into the freezing Atlantic waters can incapacitate a person within moments, causing them to drown before hypothermia itself has a chance to set in. Even for those able to stay afloat, the survival window is terribly narrow. Functional disability and loss of muscle controls in the limbs occur within just 10 minutes of immersion in these deadly temperatures. After approximately 1 hour in 32 degree Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius Atlantic waters, a person wearing a life jacket will likely succumb to unconsciousness brought on by severe hypothermia. Death follows soon after if rescue does not arrive. While there have been exceedingly rare cases of longer-term survival, these are aberrations. The risk of hypothermia makes enduring for more than an hour or two a grim statistical improbability. The frigid Atlantic shows no mercy to the unprepared or unlucky who find themselves cast into its icy embrace. The selfless actions of 3 crew members, third mate Cornelius Brady and quartermasters John Speakman and Edward Owens, turned a potential complete calamity into a rescue that saved hundreds of lives. Braving the icy surf, the 3 men swam 40 yards to a small rocky island near the wreck site. Once there, they immediately set about rigging up precarious rope lines connecting the rock back to the Atlantic's decks. Speakman was the first to secure a line, successfully initiating the arduous rescue efforts. Over the next few harrowing hours before daybreak, Brady, Speakman, and Owens managed to rig 5 separate rope bridges between the sinking ship and the wave-swept rock. These tenuous lifelines then allowed around 200 passengers and crew to make their way hand over hand from the Atlantic to the temporary safety of the rocky outcrop. Holy smokes. It was an astonishing feat of bravery and endurance in the face of hypothermia and crashing waves. Around 50 more survivors from the rock used a longer rope to reach the shore. Without the quick thinking of Brady, Speakman, and Owens to establish these lifelines, the tragedy could have been far worse. Their heroism undoubtedly prevented hundreds more from perishing in the unforgiving Atlantic Ocean.
So let's stop here.
Okay.
Do you know how absolutely incredible it is that they managed to make these lifelines from the ship to this rock?
Yeah.
Like it's like, stop and think about crashing waves, freezing cold.
Yeah.
Getting
slippery, and it's slippery too.
Getting ropes from the boat back. People would have had been going back and forth, tying stuff up, and they saved like
200 people.
250 people. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then having to like go hand over hand across that rope to get to safety.
Yeah, you lost me there, of course. It's
right? Like,
oh, where'd Mike go? Oh, he's in the ocean.
Now Matthew too, right? Like I have not been working on my upper body for a number of years.
No, me neither. This whole podcasting gig doesn't really work me out.
No.
By 6 a.m., the first rescue boat was launched, followed by a second half an hour later, and a third by 8 a.m. Each boat, crewed by 5 men, took 8 to 10 survivors from the rock and the ship, rescuing around 370 of the 430 survivors. Others reached the shore by pulling themselves along the ropes or by swimming. On shore, Sarah Jane O'Reilly led efforts to revive survivors, providing hot drinks and sheltering them in her small house. The house became so waterlogged that holes had to be bored in the floor for drainage. Kate and Agatha O'Brien, Elizabeth Ryan, and others also cared for the survivors, though there was insufficient shelter for everyone. The rescue continued until mid-morning. By afternoon, all survivors were either saved or swept away except for 3 individuals: John Firth, the first officer, a woman, and a youth, still lashed to the mizzenmast. The woman, dressed in a nightgown and singing hymns, eventually succumbed to the exhaustion and cold. Reverend William Ancient, an Anglican clergyman, arrived in the early afternoon. Noticing the 3 still stranded, he convinced a crew to help him rescue them, leveraging his Royal Navy training. They succeeded in saving Firth and the youth, but the woman had died. Ancient's daring rescue was widely reported, overshadowing the contributions of local fishermen who were largely overlooked despite their significant efforts. At least 535 people died, leaving only 429 survivors. According to the ship's manifest, of the 952 people aboard, 156 were women and 189 were children, including the 2 born on the voyage. Tragically, all the women and children perished except for one 12-year-old boy, the one rescued in the morning. His name was John Hindley. He was emigrating from England with his parents and older brother to join 2 married sisters in New Jersey. When the ship tipped suddenly, he followed some men into an upper berth in the steerage compartment, staying above the rising water. The men broke open a porthole and someone pushed the boy through, while a man outside pulled him up onto the sloping side of the ship.
So, did you say that all of the women and children except for Hindley died?
All of them.
That's sad. So, what happened to women and children first? Is that a myth?
Maybe it came later. I don't know. But, yeah. Well, women and children first into the lifeboats.
Women and children and gays.
and Billy Zane. You saw Titanic, you.
Yeah, that's really sad.
It is very sad.
All those poor little babies.
Yeah. At daylight on the morning of the wreck, the federal government, the Cunard Line steamer Delta, and the steam tug Goliath arrived from Halifax to rescue survivors and take them to the city. The Goliath, with lifeboats in tow, picked up the shipwrecked men. Most passengers were European emigrants to the United States, now dressed in borrowed clothes, many with makeshift footwear. The ordeal left them bruised and sore, with one man having both legs broken. Of the crew, 10 members were lost, while 131 survived. This disaster marked the worst civilian loss of life in the North Atlantic until the wreck of La Bourgogne on July 2, 1898. That wreck killed 562 of the 725 people aboard. Survivors of the Atlantic wreck were transported to Portland, Maine, and then to Boston, where they were warmly received and cared for. On April 3rd, the tug Henry Hoover, towing the schooner Amateur, loaded with 200 coffins and lumber, arrived from Halifax. Some aboard were there to identify dead relatives. Nearly 200 bodies were recovered and examined by the local magistrate, with unclaimed bodies placed in coffins for burial. Reverend William Johnson Ancient and Reverend Martin Maas officiated at the burials of 277 Protestants and 150 Catholics, respectively. With the White Star Line, the Canadian government covered the burial costs using the unclaimed money and valuables from the bodies. Oh, boy.
It's so odd that you're they counted Protestants and Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
These days. Could you imagine? Oh, yeah, so there are 277 Protestants on the airplane and 150 Catholics and 35 Hindu. And
Nobody would count it that way. It's usually counted by nationality now.
5 atheists. Yeah. At first, I thought that was kind of weird that the government used the unclaimed money found on the bodies.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, there's something actually quite nice about that in terms of they all buried each other.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly, yeah.
And, it's the money's there. It's probably the best use of it, right?
Yep. Yeah. Why not? And you kind of don't want that money anyway. Reverend William Johnson Ancient's bravery captured global attention, leading to a reward from the Chicago Relief Committee. Funds were raised to support local families who assisted in the rescue. The Canadian government reimbursed those who helped the survivors, and rewards were given to the rescuers, with prominent contributions from families in Lower Prospect, Upper Prospect, Pennant, and Terrace Bay. According to the Nova Scotia Archives, quote, "The international press seized upon the loss of the Atlantic with a zeal unsurpassed until the sinking of the Titanic nearly 40 years later. The Canadian Illustrated News of 19th April 1873 provided on-the-spot coverage of the aftermath. The bow, with about 60 feet of the forward part of the ship, is broken sharp off and lies close to the shore and at a distance of nearly 50 feet from the rest of the vessel. The bow and stern now point in the same direction. The ship now acts like a breakwater to the small bay in which she lies, occupying nearly the whole of it. The divers and draggers are busy looking with an eager, professional eye to what is coming to the surface in the shape of salvage. Several respectable-looking men are watching likewise from the side of the vessel with a different object. Beneath those iron walls lie the mortal remains of those whose memories are dear to them, and occasionally there is something floated upwards that they claim. There are many sad and anxious countenances among that quiet knot of strangers. Incidents of sad character occur every day, both as regards to loss of life and property. The crew of the schooner, in which our correspondents went to the scene of the catastrophe, were using pieces of the beautiful teak wood polished saloon doors for fuel." End quote. Contemporary newspapers largely blame the ship's officers for the accident. Quartermaster Thomas testified at the subsequent inquiry that he had warned First Mate Metcalf about staying too close to land, but Metcalf had ignored him. Thomas suggested that Fourth Mate Brown keep a lookout, but Brown deemed it unnecessary. Thomas admitted he was at the rudder when the lookout shouted "breakers ahead," prompting a course change and engine reversal, but the ship immediately struck the rocks. Speculation arose that the captain and mate mistook Sambro Light for Devil's Island Light, leading to the mishap. The Devil's Island Light is a Nova Scotia lighthouse at the eastern shore entrance to Halifax Harbour on Devil's Island. First lit in 1852, it was succeeded by a second lighthouse in 1877, which survives today. As mentioned above, concerns and controversy arose over the ship's coal supply. The owners, however, claimed vehemently the Atlantic had enough coal when departing England. The captain attributed the accident to miscalculating the ship's speed and currents, believing the speed was 11 knots when it must have been faster. Survivors were haunted by the disaster. Elizabeth Church's great-grandfather, Irving Ezariah Studiford, was the only Canadian survivor. Church noted to CTV News that he never spoke about the event and never worked on ships again, indicating its significant impact on him.
The good old days of men keep it inside and bury it down and don't talk about pain.
Yeah.
And I guess, it was a generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a generational thing. Even, my parents' generation, men didn't really share how they're feeling. But yeah, this would kind of ruin sailing for you, wouldn't it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'd probably want to get on a ship again either.
No, I can't see it being something that I would be looking forward to.
A friend of mine, he was telling me about this woman he knew who was in 2 plane crashes.
2?
2. And the second time she's on a plane crash, she called him from the wing of the airplane that went off the runway in New Jersey.
Oh my God.
She's like, "Can you come to the airport and get me? I'm on the wing of an airplane."
Well, the answer is I'll do my best, sweetie. I don't know if they're going to let me come get you right off the bat.
She was on one crash landing, another one went off the runway. This woman was in 2 plane crashes. How insane is that?
That is pretty insane. Yeah. That doesn't sound like much fun at all.
No,
really.
No. When he told me that, I'm like, tell me her name, so if I can ever see a manifest, I will not get on an airplane with her.
No, the chances are that she will never be in another plane crash. So if she's on the manifest, I'm going. I'm going. In the quiet coastal community of Terrence Bay, Nova Scotia, 2 hallowed mass graves serve as the final resting place for hundreds of the souls lost in the tragic sinking of the SS Atlantic. The remains of 277 unidentified passengers and crew were laid to rest together in a mass grave just outside St. Paul's Anglican Church Cemetery. Today, this solemn site is marked by a monument within the SS Atlantic Heritage Park, a seaside memorial interpreting the disaster for visitors. Not far away lies another mass grave holding some 250 more victims, buried on the outskirts of a nearby Roman Catholic cemetery. Many of the bodies of those who perished when the Atlantic sank on April 1, 1873, were committed to these 2 cemeteries in Terrence Bay, mere miles from the wreck site itself. While some were identified and received individual burials, the sheer scale of the calamity necessitated these mass graves to provide a dignified final resting place for the hundreds who could not be named after the wreck. They stand as a lasting testimony to one of Canada's most devastating maritime tragedies and the staggering human toll it wrought. While the 2 mass graves in Terrence Bay contain the remains of the majority of Atlantic victims, sources confirm that bodies were also buried at other locations beyond just the Heritage Park Cemetery site. According to ssatlantic.com, the SS Atlantic Heritage Park was created by volunteers to restore these 2 burial sites and monuments and to preserve the history of the disaster, and the park is located at St. Paul's Anglican Church Cemetery. Overgrown for years, a commemorative monument erected in 1915 by the White Star Line was rediscovered in 1980. New funding allowed for the restoration of the memorial and burial sites, completed in the spring of 1981, with a rededication ceremony on July 25th of that year. After further fundraising, the Interpretation Center and Museum opened on July 28, 2002. Visitors can enjoy boardwalks and walking paths that lead to the Terrence Bay Lighthouse in Sandy Cove. The SS Atlantic Heritage Park Museum in the Interpretation Center is the best place to learn about the SS Atlantic's sinking. The museum houses a vast collection of artifacts salvaged from the wreck, including a porthole found by the late Jim Murphy, a crewman's cap from an American donor, and a locally donated working clock. The collection also features the White Star Line flag donated by an American with family on the ship, along with newspaper reports about the sinking. Informative panels with detailed explanations, pictures, and artist renditions of the disaster are displayed throughout the museum, narrating a story of heroism and compassion. If you want a more in-depth look at the SS Atlantic tragedy online, check out Tom Linsky's HFX Studios at historicalfx.com and his YouTube channel, Part-Time Explorer. Linsky has done a fabulous job digging into this maritime tragedy and many others. Kudos to him and his compassionate and detailed research. And that's it for Dark Poutine episode 322, Marine Disasters in Nova Scotia and the Wreck of the SS Atlantic.
The Wreck of the SS Atlantic.
Yes, I'm not Gordon Lightfoot.
You know, today, the day that we're recording this, I looked in my elevator news.
Yep.
And I guess there's a big ship in one of the Great Lakes hit something.
Oh, dear.
I don't know if it's unfolding as we speak, but it hit something that was under the water and it's taking on water.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's scary. I mean, the Great Lakes, they are great. I mean, they're not called great because they're fantastic. They're called great because they're so huge. It's massive. If you've ever driven along them like I have, holy smokes, they never end.
Well, I grew up amongst them, right? Lake Superior is actually technically a sea.
An inland sea, yeah.
An inland sea. Yeah, so a freighter ship in Lake Superior collided with something underwater, Coast Guard says. So that happened today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully everybody's okay. And
News out of Sault Ste. Marie.
The Sioux.
Oh, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. I didn't know there was a Sioux in Michigan as well.
Yep, there's two. Yeah. I've been to the Sioux in Ontario, but I've never been to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan.
The Sioux.
Let's move on to some voicemails.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
A $6 billion con.
It didn't take long for it to spread like wildfire.
You got to take a look at this really crazy gold stock. A buddy of mine got in at a dime.
Which destroyed lives and devastated communities.
Every little town across the nation, people have shares in this.
We lost everything.
And to date, no one has been brought to justice.
Somebody knows more than we know.
The $6 billion gold scam. From the BBC World Service and CBC. Search for the $6 billion gold scam wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right. It's time for voicemails. You can leave us a message at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see who called us this week.
And here is our first voicemail.
Hello, gentlemen. This is Sarah from Florida. When last I left you a message, I spent a lot of time talking about breast health, which is still important. But I finally remembered the reason I had been inspired to call you in the first place. I've noticed in the last several months that you are no longer introducing yourself as Canadian schmucks. And as a Jewish listener, I really did love the Yiddish. and so I wanted to ask about, if it was just a time for a change or if someone had actually complained about the use of the term schmuck, which would be kind of wild considering all of the other content that, tends to occur on some of your episodes. And on that topic, today is June the 6th, and Robert Pickton has officially left this earthly realm as of yesterday, so may he rot in the flaming pig pen in the deepest depths of hell forever. And I just had to share that little nugget of joy with you as well. I shouldn't say joy, but I don't think the earth benefited from his presence here. So I'm going to default and say it benefits from his departure. With that having been said, thank you again, as always, for the incredible work you both do and the stories that you tell so empathetically and so beautifully. And please do so kindly take a shit in your hats.
Well, thank you so much. And yes, somebody did complain. Somebody said that, schmuck is too negative and you guys aren't schmucks.
The chutzpah.
Yeah.
I've got spielkas in the Genecticazoid.
Oh boy.
I'm going all totally into my Yiddish now.
As my Yiddish grandmother might have said, Oi gewalt.
Oi gewalt.
Oi gewalt. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking we should add that back in because it was only one person.
Yeah, I didn't even really notice it, but I don't mind you calling me a schmuck.
You don't mind?
No.
As long as I don't call you a nebbish.
Yeah, or a klutz, because I'm not a klutz.
Yeah, you're a bit of a klutz.
Only when I knock over my tchotchke.
Right. Oy. But, yeah.
She has definitely compelled me to move forward with changing the intro again. So
You know, my friend Sophie was in a klezmer band called Oi Vavoy.
I love klezmer so much.
Klezmer is so good. I don't know why. It's so fun.
It is. It's super fun. It's really fun music.
Yeah, yeah.
And what does Sarah do there in Florida, Matthew? I'm curious.
I think Sarah just hangs out with the gay boys in South Beach.
So she hangs out with gay boys in South Beach.
Yeah, she's
Why
a fag.
not?
She's a fag hag in South Beach.
Dear. Well, great. Good on her.
And that is it. That's a positive term, just so everyone knows. Or it could be Queen Bee. She's a Queen Bee in South Beach.
There you go.
There you go.
Queen Bee.
Yep. She just goes clubbing and has a good time.
Oh, why not?
Well, you know, I can remember I used to have a place down in South Beach that, like, literally the only people in South Beach were Jewish widows and gay boys. Like, and we had there's this community of, like, old Jewish ladies and gay guys, and that was it. That was South Beach for years. It was so much fun.
I have never been to South Beach, I don't think. I've only been to certain places in Florida, and they're the places that have, St. Pete's Beach I was, and then Tampa, Orlando. Blech.
Yeah.
Not so great.
My Florida really only ever was South Beach and Key West.
Well, there you go. All righty, here's our second voicemail.
Good morning, boys. This is Katie from the Greater Toronto area, also known by some as the center of the universe. I have been listening to you for quite a few years and want to thank you for your continuing coverage of Canadian-based crime. It's always interesting that when I listen to other true crime podcasts that discuss Canadian crime, I always cringe a little and in true Canadian form say, sorry. However, when you boys cover cases, you do it with dignity for those who are affected, respect for the victims, factual details, and of course, with some great humor. I have gone down the research rabbit holes on some of your historic cases and found them fascinating, as most of them are complete surprises to me. I didn't really know anything about them. Anyway, I wonder if you would consider examining the case of Stephen Truscott, who in 1959 in Ontario, as a 14-year-old boy was convicted and sentenced to hang, although that was commuted. This story sparked my budding interest in true crime, which gives you an idea of my age, and then stimulated a lifelong fascination with true crime, especially after reading In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. I think it was published in 1965 or something. Anyway, boys, thanks for taking time to hear my voicemail. Keep up the good work. Clean out your hats occasionally. And please, please continue to provide compelling stories for homegrown crime. Ciao.
So, yeah, she brings up a great point, and I have been researching the Stephen Truscott case. We've done a couple of wrongful convictions recently, so I kind of wanted some space between them, but that is one that I've been researching already, and it's a really fascinating case, especially, you know, he was a kid, wrongfully convicted kid, who was then sentenced to hang, and thankfully did not. So it's quite a story, his story. I would love to have him on. I don't know if he's open to talk, but if he ever hears us, please reach out, Stephen. It would be great to hear you share your experience. But yeah, definitely. And we really appreciate that your compliments on how we handle Canadian cases. Because, yeah, I've listened to some and, some other... we try to do it a little different. We try, but sometimes we hit the target, sometimes we don't. But we're always trying. We try to do a good job by everybody. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think we try.
Yeah. I think trying is the big thing. Like realizing there's some problems around all of this. But anyway.
I mean, I think one thing that goes to show is we get a lot of, I've become friends, Facebook friends, but they don't make them less real with people who have been,
affected
in these stories,
Yeah.
like loved ones. And
Yeah.
I think people, how many times, Mike, have people reached out going, that was my mom or my husband or my grandma, and you did a great job, right?
Yep, I have. I actually have here on my desktop a painting of Daniel Levesque, who was one of the victims,
Yes.
and his mom Stacy was on our show, Stacy
Yeah.
Thur, and she's allowed me to keep this really nice
that's so
keepsake.
sweet. That's
so,
beautiful.
and on the back is the poem "Soulfire," that his song that he wrote.
Did you cry when she gave it to you?
It got a little misty, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we try, and we're going to continue to try. So
I mean, this one I was having a bit of fun because it's sort of mass disaster hundreds of years ago.
Mass disaster like 100 and something years ago. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to offend anybody.
We didn't really do anything that's going to offend somebody, and if we did, well, oh well.
No, I think I offended my own people.
You offended your people? Oh, because you said you don't want to go on a cruise with them?
No, I do not. I'm sorry, I do not.
Oh, but that's okay, Matthew. You're allowed.
Oh, it'd be hell.
That's it for this week's voicemails. Again, you can leave us one at 1-877-327-5786 or 1-877-DARK-PTN. We'd love to hear from you, even if it is just to say hi and to tell us to go shit in our hats. If you're stumped for what to chat with us about, a quick story is welcome. And we don't have any donut money donors or patrons this week, new patrons, but you know what? That's cool. We love you anyway.
Even if you give us enough money for donut holes, that's fine.
Donut holes? You mean Timbits?
No, donut holes.
I don't want... Yeah, but donut holes are just air.
No, but the rest of the world outside of Tim Hortons calls them donut holes.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, donut holes, sure. But the idea of the donut, of the word donut hole, and it representing an actual thing, sort of is like, what? Because a hole, to me, indicates a nothing, a zero, zilch.
Have you watched that movie about Kellogg's and Post cereals?
Was that Pleasantville?
It's new and it's called Frosted or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I haven't watched that yet, no.
Well, one of the failures was early Cheerios, and they called them Grandma's Holes.
What?
They called them Grandma Holes.
Yeah, okay. I like Cheerios. I don't know if I would be eating Grandma Holes every morning.
Grandma Holes, part of a healthy breakfast.
Come and get your Grandma Holes. Oh no,
so bad.
It's
not a fantastic. I fell asleep during the movie, so it's.
It was great. Not good. It's supposed to be a comedy, and you fell asleep.
Yeah, but I've been doing that lately. You know me. You know me. I go hard, and so by the time I've had dinner and we plop on our comfy couch and Steve snuggled with me, I'm like 5 minutes.
Well, you take pictures of Justin and Steve sleeping on the couch.
Oh
too,
yeah, that was cute. He had his little paw on him.
Yeah.
Thanks to all our patrons and Donut Money donors past and present for your generosity. It helps to keep the show going. You can become a patron of Dark Poutine at patreon.com/darkpoutine. For a one-time donation, you can send us donut money via PayPal using our email address, darkpoutinepodcast@gmail.com. If you don't already subscribe to the show, it would mean a lot if you did. You can easily find Dark Poutine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you haven't gotten yours yet, my book, Murder, Madness, and Mayhem, is available to order via a link on the Dark Poutine website. And speaking of darkpoutine.com, please check it out for show notes and other cool stuff. We'd appreciate it if you took the time to give Dark Poutine a like or a follow on Facebook and Instagram. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and tell your friends about us. Word of mouth is a powerful thing.
And that's it for this episode of Dark Poutine. So until next time, don't forget to be a good egg and not a bad apple.
Not a bad apple.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.